What's
And
up?
we're
What's up?
live.
We are live back in the building. It's been a minute. So what's going on, fam? Thanks for coming through. We appreciate you as usual. This is Emin the Mass Media Group. My name is Yamoya, and we got
Kimmy Mend.
Kim in the building. So yeah, we've been up to a lot lately. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to live broadcast, but we're gonna definitely bring the family up to speed of what we're doing. And do we have anything right now to play? I don't think we do. We're just gonna go into like the stuff we've been up to, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been on our regularly scheduled live broadcast, but we have been live broadcasting. Don't get it twisted. Let's see. We started off May 14th here in Sacramento with a reparations information session. And that was at the Shakir Center out here in Sacramento, California. The Shakir Center does a lot of amazing things. They give out free food to those in need. Also have expungement services and other services that you can look into as well. And the day we were here, it's actually a former church, as you can see that Chris is up there at the pulpit spreading the word. But when we went out there, they were cultivating a little garden in the back, a little food garden, which was I thought was interesting and definitely a timely activity to take up.
Yeah,
What
for
else have
sure.
we been up to after that? We went out to Oakland listening session. This was our first official listening session as a anchor org for the Bunch Center Anchor Org. So that was a successful listening session there. Heard a lot from the community and also had some amazing speakers. After that, we had our little rally up here in Sacramento, California. As you can see behind with the colorful flags, they had a Pride Month parade going on back there. We got to get our reparations rally up to that level for next year. So stay tuned for all of that, family. And then that was June 12th in Sacramento. And then June 18th and 19th, we spent in LA. The NAASD family put on together their officially hosted listening session as an anchor org, and that was a 2 day event. And there were three different events involved in that 2 day event for one listening session. So let's see. On the 18th, there was a mixer at Hot and Cool Cafe. That was great. You're looking at that picture there up in your upper what's that going to be, your left hand corner. And then we've got the Pullman Center, Pullman Community Arts Center. There was the official listening session there, which was also well attended. But before that, there was a panel on kind of the origins of how the reparations task force came to be with AB 31. Let's take a look at what they had to say there.
We are closer than we've been to reparations since the end of the Civil War. And everybody here who's sitting here, who's watching, who's listening, who's going to watch, who's going to listen, is sitting inside of a history book right now. Every single one of us. They're going to be writing and reading and talking about what we did here in this time in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, generations to come.
Shout out to Chris Lodson.
Yeah, shout out. So that roundup of what we've been up to. Did you have anything to add to that, Yamoya?
Yeah, no, it was a great event. Kim, you want to go back to the picture?
Oh, we want to go back to the slide.
Yeah, the
Okay, we
slide.
can
Yeah,
do that. We can do
so we can
that.
kind of give the family some context. Okay, so as Kim was saying on the upper left, that was shot at Houghton Cafe. That was a cool event. I believe Chris and Chad were hosting that event via CJEC, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. I think Cerise, I can't remember Sister Cerise last name. She was
I
given,
believe it's Castle.
is it Castle? Cerise Castle. Yeah, she was dropping some gems as well. Who else was there? And I think she's actually a descendant of Sherman, uh, General Sherman, who created the Field Order 15. And
Yeah, that
then,
was a powerful presentation. She was presenting on the sheriff gangs out there in Los Angeles, which sounds like a pretty big problem. Um,
yeah, for sure, a huge issue, not only in LA, but across the country, across the nation. And also to the left, the reparations panel discussion. That was a good build. Actually, if everyone has not seen it yet, we do have the panel discussion. Maybe later on we'll put it in the chat. If you haven't looked at it, check that out. It was a very good discussion. And then I believe on the NAASD LA channel, or Politics in Black, they do have the Lamert Park session as well. So it was a great time, great event. We will be posting some of the interviews that we did throughout the 18th and 19th. We went out to the community, talked to the people, see what they thought about reparations and Juneteenth. So that was some of the updates with that one.
okay. Do you have any other updates before we get into our show here?
Let's see. So we went through the 28th, the Oakland. We went through the LA event. Um, yeah, let's talk about the Reparations Now documentary, shall we? And shout out to
Okay.
everybody who came out with the reparations rally. I believe Jay, who's in the building, was there. And shout out to Darlene, she was there. And if anybody else was there at the rally, please let us know in the chat. We definitely want to shout you out. Let's Before we do that, what's up, Brian? How you doing, fam? Universal Mike, what's up? And of course, as usual, what's up, Darlene? How you doing, family? Darlene's a big supporter. Much love to Darlene. She's been just putting in tremendous work for the
Yeah, I
reparations
believe
now.
Darlene made it out to all of the events. So, with the rundown of the events, that was six in total in like a month. So, we did six events telling people about reparations in Northern and Southern California over the span of the month. And Darlene made it to all of those events. So, shout out, Darlene.
Yeah, definitely. What's up, Crystal? How you doing? Yeah, for sure. We actually, Darlene, if it's kind of hard to see her, but um let's see. And Carol, shout out to Carol. She's in the building too. Shout out to Kevin at Reparations Over Everything. He's
Shout out.
actually in the orange hat throwing up the black fist sign there. So shout out to Kevin and everybody who came through and all the speakers for the reparations rally. But yeah, Darlene is in this photograph representing.
Yeah, and
Um,
the reparations rally was also live streamed, so that's
yes, it
also
was.
available at ETM Media Group YouTube page if you want to swing by and take a look at that.
Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe, family. If you haven't, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page. So let's talk about the Reparations Now documentary, shall we? All right. A lot of things has been going on. Let's start from up Northern California in Weed. We actually had a great interview with one of the current residents there. His name is Al Bearden, and he's a longtime resident. And man, he was throwing some just serious gems on Weed. We're also going to be talking with Dr. Willie. I can't remember his last name. It's coming off the top of my head now, but he's actually was one of the organizers. They had actually a protest in Weed because blacks weren't being hired at this particular store. So we're going to be interviewing him as well
Or any
shortly.
stores,
Any
particular
stores,
store,
right?
any store. Yeah.
Yeah, weed, which a lot of people don't know about, and I was thoroughly disgusted but well informed that basically when blacks were migrating from the south to weed, basically, blacks were in trouble just right off the gate, and we'll definitely be going to it. I mean, just from what I understand, it was pretty much a new form of a plantation, right? Blacks they didn't own pretty much anything when they first got there. And economically, they were just strapped and trapped. So we're definitely going to go into that and what happened to weed from when blacks first moved there to present time. So that's going to be pretty deep, family. In Sacramento, we throughout the couple of weeks we've been able to interview uh, Jonathan Burgess. And for those who aren't familiar with Jonathan Burgess, his family was basically robbed of their land up in Coloma during the gold rush era. So we talked to him, and we also talked to Keisha Matthews, who's here in Sacramento. She has her own program. She's a real estate. Um, is she a real estate agent or what is she, Kim? I can't remember.
Agent
Broker.
or broker. I mean, she's been in the field for a long time. I mean, I'm sure she could help you out with any of your real estate needs.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking with her. We have something else scheduled in Vallejo. Uh, it's going to be a surprise, so we can't tell you that, but we'll just say there's some information about Vallejo that I ran across that's going to be shocking to those who aren't familiar with some of the black military veterans out there. I'll just put that out there. And then we went to Allensworth, and shout out to John Pope, who's a longtime resident of Allensworth. He was dropping gems, dropping some knowledge. Going to be very informative for the documentary. So we went down to Allensworth and went down to Los Angeles, and shout out to Tisha, who basically talked about Biddy Mason. We went to Biddy Mason's funeral, or not funeral home, graveyard site. So we went there, and Tisha was bringing definitely some good information there. So we were very humbled to have Tisha on as the basically guide tour that we had for Biddy Mason. And she explained about San Bernardino's involvement with our ancestors and enslavement here in California. And, got to give a shout out. We also interviewed Angela Nirvana. Angela always, always, always bring the fire. We also interviewed Chad Brown, Marcus Champion, and Friday Jones. So down there in LA. So everybody was bringing the heat. And I used to live in Los Angeles. I lived there for about 15, 18 years, and it pretty much hasn't changed since the last time I lived in Los Angeles. And we're gonna go into it. We went to by Bruce's Beach. And do you remember the brother's name who we met, interviewed, Kim? At least his first name.
I want to say Vince.
Yeah, it was something like Vince. And do you want to tell the story how you were a little apprehensive before you approached him?
Well, I mean, Vince was just out there, minding his black business out at Bruce's Beach, and I'm like, just looked so relaxed. And at one time, I looked over and he was sleeping. I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go bother him while he's asleep." But then I saw him, stirring over there, waking up a bit. So I did go approach him and talk to him. I said, "Oh, you just look so comfortable out here sleeping. I didn't want to bother you." But I was also thinking, he feels comfortable enough to go to sleep, with these people, not afraid of being accosted or bothered by anybody. And he was living over in Inglewood, he was telling me. So, yeah, he says he comes out to Bruce's Beach for one, to normalize them seeing black people out there, since, hopefully there'll be some changes with the giving back of the property, where more Black people will go out and enjoy it, or be able to live out there. But he says he just, couldn't feel that comfortable in his own neighborhood, so he goes all the way across town to Bruce's Beach just for a little bit of serenity. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, man. Shout out to that, brother. We really appreciate it, man. We actually had a long discussion with him. And, he was talking about how LA's been gentrified and not necessarily advantageous for, Black American descendants. And, he was also talking about how he's been trying to get into that area for a number of years. I believe he said he currently lives in Inglewood, and specifically Manhattan Beach, where Bruce's Beach is located. And he said it's just so expensive to live there. I mean, we even asked him, like, how much do you think one of these houses is going? He said, well, at minimum, you're looking at the low, super low end, like super low end.
Bargain basement prices.
Yeah, you're talking about $6 million, just like super low, up to like 22, 25 million or something like that. So it was a great build. So we appreciate that. Let's read a comment here from Darlene. Shout out to Darlene once again. FY ARCC. Shout out to ARCC. Bay Area had their first new member orientation yesterday, and one of the guests gave Emin a great shout out. All right. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, Darlene, if you want to let us know in the chat how that came out.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all about your new member orientation.
Yeah, let us know, fam. Appreciate that. And so that's basically what's been going on with us. We've been traveling up and down California, just trying to get this information and trying to get this knowledge and bring it out to the people. Hopefully one day we will, if we get enough funds, which may or may not be the case, but if we do happen to come across some money from the money tree we don't have, we definitely like to reach out to the family and maybe do a 10-city tour of the Reparations Now documentary, and then after the documentary, speak with the people, see what they have to say about reparations. But that's on our wish list, and don't know which cities right now. I think one of definitely the wish lists that we currently have is probably, I know Kim's family's out there in Louisiana, so we probably want to have something in Louisiana, maybe something out in Georgia, and then out in South Carolina. So
yeah, send us suggestions of where you think we should go for our screenings. And like Yamoy said, we're kind of in the final stretch of our documentary here. I'll just go ahead and post the GoFundMe, share that out with your networks, fam. Again, because we do want to hit the road once we have this complete and continue to spread the word on reparations.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and actually, I don't think anybody has seen the new trailer, right, Kim?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, so
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay, so family, yes, family, you guys are getting a sneak peek of the new trailer.
World premiere.
So let's go ahead, cue this up for the family, and we will be back.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but freed people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Whoop, there it is.
Documentary. And I forgot to mention, let's give a shout out to Samuel Brown.
Definitely shout out Sam Brown.
And also Tony Harvey. We interviewed them as well here in Sacramento. So definitely got to give a shout out to them brothers. They was bringing some serious game, some serious fire in that interview. So yeah, when we drop this, man, it's going to be a lot of good information for the people. So appreciate y'all coming through. Let's see what's going on. Hey, shout out. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that, brother. And Darlene, as usual, who is actually associate producer on Reparations Now. So yeah, we're gonna, see what's happening. So shout out to you, Darlene, obviously. Brian, thanks, man. Appreciate you. And yeah, so I guess let's get into the topic of discussion today, which is going to be, the 4th. Today known as 4th of July, also known as 4th of July, and talk about Black America. We're going to talk about the history of, or some history of the 4th. As we go through, if there's anybody in the chat that knows something that we don't know, I'm always a student to learn, and drop them gems, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have some information about the 4th.
Yeah, and let us know what you're doing for the 4th. Where's the cookout out this year?
Yeah, for sure. Or if you just chilling, or if you celebrate the 4th. Some people don't even celebrate it, but if you do, that's cool too. But we're gonna, go into a brother named Shaka Musa Bada Shango, do a presentation where he goes in about July 4th and the history of it, and we're gonna be talking about France. I always forget John Francis Key, or I think that's his name, Francis Key Scott or something like that. Scott Key, something. I always mess up the dude's name. Anyway, we're gonna be talking about the history of him and the 13th Amendment and some other things. So I guess we'll get started. So we're going to do about a 2-3 minute presentation. It's about 16 minutes, but we edit it out, and we're going to be posting it later on our channel, so you can check out the rest of the presentation. But let's go ahead and cue up that presentation. It's about 2 or 3 minutes, family, and then after that, we will get started.
PRP fam.
America's Independence Day, the 4th of July. Written by Dr. Ishaka Musa Badashengo in Chapter 1 in the book titled African People and European Holidays. Mental Genocide. July 4th is a date annually set aside to commemorate the gathering of 54 land-grabbing thieves who were convened at the Second Continental Congress to determine their own destiny as white men, Euro-Americans, in a British-dominated colonial sphere, which at this time in world history, according to Brother Malcolm, it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. In order to comprehend the true meaning of this event from an African worldview perspective, black people must clearly understand that America's strike for independence from the British colonial empire, for all of its lofty proclamations of liberty and justice for all, was in no way inclusive of the black population residing here in the 13 colonies. Most black people in colonial America were in bondage to white plantation owners and merchants. The only time that the black man was taken into account during this principal epoch of European American history was when the slave master stumbled on the idea that we could be used as their shields against British muskets, therefore minimizing for whites the risk of being mortally wounded. Thus, many slave owners sent their black bondsmen to the front lines to serve as targets and cannon fodder for the protection of the not-so-patriotic colonial Americas. The War of the American Revolution was not commissioned with the objective of altering black people's status as hewers of wood and drawers of water, except to add more weights to our already back-breaking burdens and plunge us deeper into slavery. This is why we refer to this day as the 4th of July. The Euro-Americans blatantly lied to us when they promised us freedom if we would fight for the liberation for Britain and the tyranny of King George, as they called it. This was one of the bitterest lies in the history of the world, for the majority of black people in the United States were far worse off at the close of the Revolutionary War than they were before it began, especially with the coming of the cotton gin in 1793 and the evolution of King Cotton and its super role in the industrialization of the 18th century. All right, family. So that is currently the presentation that we're going to be posting on the site later on by Ishaka Musa Badashengo. So definitely check it out there when you definitely have a chance. But now we're going to go into the topic of discussion, which is the history of 4th of July. I know we currently have our fellow brother and comrade Samuel Brown up there, which we'll be talking to later about ACA 3 and what happened to that. But in the meantime, let's go back to the topic at hand, shall we? 4th history and Black America, ACA 3, and America still practices slavery. Before we go on, Kim, do you have any thoughts in terms of Ishaka Musa Badashengo's presentation or not?
I mean, it just, really goes to show that, freedom wasn't for everybody. So just seems pretty hypocritical to celebrate. And, with all this discussion about Juneteenth and Juneteenth being made a federal holiday, I've been seeing people say that, Juneteenth or maybe even later in December 18th, when the 13th Amendment was actually ratified to exclude slavery, should be the day that everyone should be celebrating independence for this country.
So,
But
okay, can you say that one more time, Kim?
I said that I've been seeing, a lot of talk about the ratification of the 13th Amendment, which happened in December 1865, should be the actual day that we are celebrating freedom for everyone in the country rather than the 4th of July, because we know that we just all weren't free. I mean, so we're still not. You mentioned even ACA 3. They don't even want to remove language dealing with slavery and indentured servitude from the California Constitution, let alone the federal Constitution. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what we're celebrating here.
Yeah. So the question that we ask, family, and it may be obvious to some or may not be obvious. I mean, we'd like to hear y'all. Does America still practices slavery? America still practices slavery? Question mark. We have in the title, does America still practice slavery? Could be.
While they think about that, you want me to read this latest article on the ACA 3? I mean, I don't even think we can call it a ruling. Yeah, because it seems like it was just ignored. But maybe we'll read this article.
Calm longer.
Yeah, let's take a look at this article while people reflect on what the 4th of July means to them. All right, this is coming from the Charlotte Observer. Looks like this was posted on July 1st, 2022. Californians won't weigh involuntary servitude amendment. California will not consider amending its constitution to eliminate indentured servitude as a possible punishment for crime after Governor Gavin Newsom's administration predicted that it could cost the state billions of dollars to pay minimum wage to prison inmates. Democratic Senator Sidney Kamlager said Thursday that she ran out of time and supporters after the measure barring involuntary work without pay last week fell 7 votes short of the 2/3 margin it needed in the Senate. She elected not to bring it back for another try after she said it still lacked support before lawmakers adjourned Thursday for a month-long summer recess. Quote, one of the challenges we've had is people are conflating policy with moral argument about taking out words that are historical, that are loaded, that are remnants of slave past, and that were implemented in ways that made people less human, end quote, Kamlager said in the interview. The policy questions could have been hashed out later, she argued. The financial impact feared by Newsom's Department of Finance hasn't been an issue for 3 states, Colorado, Nebraska, and Utah, that previously made similar changes, said Kamlager, and Jamila Land, who is both a spokesperson for the California Abolition Act Coalition and a coordinator for Abolish Slavery National Network. And voters in Alabama, Louisiana, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont will consider similar ballot measures this November. Quote, it is the height of hypocrisy for California to be stepping onto the national stage as a haven of progressiveness right now when its leaders continue to enshrine slave labor practices in the state, end quote. The Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, a reform group that supported the amendment, said in a statement. So the height of hypocrisy. Facts.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, that's actually right. If America's supposed to be progressive, right? It's supposed to, quote unquote, be one of the leading nations or one of the state in a nation that's supposed to be leading democracy, right, for the world, still practices slave labor here.
Right. And I mean, it is discouraging. It is discouraging because one of the arguments around ACA 3 and our reparations movement out here in California is that,
this reparation is for atonement for slavery, but they're not even willing to take slavery out of their legal lexicon. So, what does that mean for reparations?
We'll see. I mean, once the task force, specifically in California, I'm not going to talk about the federal, but specifically here in California, when they put out the proposals, we'll see what the legislature has to say in the community, right? The public. I'm going to read some comments here and then we'll continue. Shout out to Maximus. It says, I was involved in the entire process. We all felt betrayed. I was also a team member in every state's efforts to remove pro-slavery language. We have 5 on the ballot this year. We thought far-left liberal California would be a shoo-in. Instead, we were sold out using underhanded, unethical tactics. Not surprised at all. And hopefully we'll get Samuel Brown, who authored ACA 3, on the platform so he can give us a better understanding from his perspective what happened in the future. So we'll see. But let's also talk about some other things here, shall we? The Star Spangled Banner. Okay, was there anything else you wanted to talk about ACA 3 or voluntary servitude?
No, nothing left to say. Like you said, we just, need to see action. And Sam, did post some encouraging words on social media about, not giving up and, just got to keep plugging along. We'll be back at them next time.
For sure. All right, so let's get into the Star Spangled Banner, shall we? The national theme for the United States of America. Now, Kim, I know we kind of had a pre-meeting to read the Star Spangled Banner for the family. Do you still want to do that? Or, because I know the family is probably like, yeah. As a matter of fact, family, put a 1 in the chat if y'all want us to read the whole thing or not. Because we won't.
I mean, I say let's read it. We could be reading it while we're doing this. I mean, we need to, face this stuff head on and know what we're dealing with.
All right. So you wanna take the first slide and I'll take the other.
Okay, let's see. Complete version of the Star Spangled Banner showing spelling and punctuation from Francis Scott Key's manuscript in the Maryland Historical Society collection. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right.
Question mark.
All right, next. On the shore dimly seen through the mist of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes. What is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in glory, in full glory reflected now, shines in the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, O long wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. I was going to say the home of the slave, Freudian slip, but we'll move to the next one.
And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps, pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner
in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Oh, thus be it ever when freemen shall stand. They mean freedmen with a D. Oh, thus be it ever when freemen shall stand between their loved home and the war's disillusion. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. All right, so let's see, go into one of the comments, read the part with the slaves. All right, so let's actually go back to that, shall we?
Go back and unpack it.
Go back and unpack. All right, so yeah, so the line that says no refuge could save the hireling enslaved from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Anybody in the comments want to take a stab at what they think that means? We're actually going to be reading some news articles regarding that line. But anybody in the comments? Going once, going twice, going 3 times? All right. So yeah, let's actually go into it, shall we?
Sure.
Well, first, before we actually do that, let's see what's going on with let's see what we got here. Francis Scott Keys and the Star-Spangled Banner, and what kind of the history of it. So I'll read the first one, and if you don't mind taking another slide, I can appreciate that. On September 14th, 1814, Francis Scott Key pens a poem which is later set to music, and in 1931 becomes America's national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. The poem, originally titled The Defense of Fort Henry, was written after Key witnessed the Maryland fort being bombarded by the British during the War of 1812. Key was inspired by the sight of a lone U.S. flag still flying over Fort McHenry at daybreak. As reflected in the now famous words of the Star-Spangled Banner and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Francis Scott Key was born in August 1st, 1779 at Terra Rubra, his family's estate in Frederick County, now Carroll County, Maryland. He became a successful lawyer in Maryland and Washington, D.C., and was later appointed U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. We're actually going to be talking about that a little bit more, and how definitely he was playing both the abolitionist side and also the enslavement side as well during that time. On June 18th, 1812, America declared war on Great Britain after a series of trade disagreements. In August 1814, British troops invaded Washington, D.C. and burned the White House, Capitol building, and Library of Congress. Their next target was Baltimore. You're on mute.
Okay. After one of Key's friends, Dr. William Beans, was taken prisoner by the British, he went to Baltimore, located the ship where Beans was being held, and negotiated his release. However, Key and Beans weren't allowed to leave until after the British bombardment of Fort McHenry. Key watched the bombing campaign unfold from aboard a ship located about 8 miles away. After a day, the British were unable to destroy the fort and gave up. Key was relieved to see the American flag still flying over Fort McHenry, and quickly penned a few lines to tribute to what he had witnessed. The poem was printed in newspapers and eventually set to music of popular English drinking tune called To Anacreon in Heaven by composer John Stafford Smith. People began referring to the song as the Star-Spangled Banner. And in 1916, President Woodrow Wilson announced that it should be played at all official events. It was adopted as the national anthem on March 3rd, 1931. Francis Scott Key died of pleurisy on January 11th, 1843.
All right. So yeah, so that's a little history about the Star Spangled Banner. Let's go actually into a discussion, or actually a news article, that was written around 2016 at The Intercept, that I believe does a pretty good job in terms of summarizing the national anthem. More proof: the U.S. national anthem has always been tainted with racism. Our current difficulty in facing our past honestly and soberly strongly suggests that we are still a long way from laying it to rest. King himself never explained precisely what he meant by the third stanza. According to Mark Leibson, author of a recent biography of Key, Key spoke about the Star Spangled Banner in public just once and did not mention this issue. Key did not write about the song in his surviving letters. That said, Leibson explains, while researching his book, he, quote, did not find any historians who interpreted the hireling and the slave line as anything but a reference to the enslaved people who escaped their bonds and went over to the British side. Leibson himself also believes it is clear this is the correct way to interpret the stanza.
Key was born in 1779 on his wealthy family's Maryland plantation. Oh, well, this is more proof the U.S. national anthem has always been tainted with racism. Key was born in 1779 on his wealthy family's Maryland plantation known as Terra Rubra. After childhood, he left to study law and eventually moved to Washington, D.C., where he kept 1 or 2 slaves as servants. In 1813, the year before the British attack of Fort McHenry, Key wrote to his father to inform him that he had just purchased an old woman and a little girl about 12 or 18 years old. Key offered to send them to his parents to work on their plantation and apparently did so. In a subsequent letter, he asked his mother how you like the old woman and the girl. Upon his father's death, Key inherited Terra Rubra and its coerced workforce. Key was not physically cruel as a master, and during his lifetime freed 7 of his household slaves. One, Clem Johnson, had been the plantation's assistant estate manager. Johnson subsequently stayed at Terra Rubra to help oversee Key's property, both land and humans. Moreover, as Key's biographer Leibson explains, Key strongly opposed international slave trafficking on humanitarian grounds and defended enslaved people and free blacks without charge in D.C. courts. If you cherry-picked his words on slavery, you might think he was an abolitionist. That, however, would be almost 180 degrees from the truth.
In his work, Key was the prototypical Washington lobbyist. In the 1820s, he parlayed his celebrity as patriotic poet into a lucrative law practice, helping clients and business before the federal government. During this period, Key also represented slaveholders attempting to retrieve their escaped, quote, property, end quote. In time, Key became a confidant to President Andrew Jackson. He was, in today's parlance, a Washington insider. When Jackson appointed Key to serve as district attorney for Washington in 1833, it was not least to enforce the law controlling African Americans, both those enslaved and the city's growing population of free blacks. During Key's 7 years in office, he proved an energetic and moralistic prosecutor, taking on the dangers of fornication and abolitionism with equal fervor. In 1833, Key tried to shut down the Capitol's, quote, bawdy houses, end quote, the popular female-run brothels that serve both white and black customers. A glance at 20 plus pages of escort advertisement in today's DC Yellow Pages indicates that Key failed to stamp out sex work in Washington. The same year, Key indicted John Prout, a free black school teacher, who had forged papers for a young enslaved couple attempting to escape to freedom. Prout was convicted and was forced to leave town. You're on mute.
All right. The next year, Key ignored the First Amendment to persecute Ben Lundy, a courageous editor who published an anti-slavery newspaper in the Capitol. Lundy and his assistant editor, the young but soon-to-be famous William Lloyd Garrison, also had to flee Washington lest they be assaulted by slavers. Key, like many U.S. politicians after him, was stickler for law and order. Blacks who encountered the constables serving Key often ended up robbed or dead. When a white riot swept the city in August 1835, Key sought to quell fears of a slave rebellion by seeking the death penalty for Arthur Bowen, a young black man accused of attempted murder. When doubts arose about Bowen's guilt, District Attorney Key was implicable in seeking to hang him. This perilous battle is recounted in more detail in the book Snowstorm in August by this article's co-author. Key next prosecuted a New York doctor who had moved to Washington with a trunk of anti-slavery literature. The trial attracted attention across the nation. In the courtroom, Key emotionally denounced the abolitionists who wanted to free all enslaved people.
All right, family. Yeah, I don't know if y'all knew that information about the author of the national anthem that has been supported now by the U.S., but he was definitely trying to do the lines between abolitionists and still supporting enslavement in the United States.
What do you think his motives were for that?
Oh, capitalism. I mean, we live in capital. I mean, I don't know about anybody else in the chat if you guys have some ideas and comments about, Key, but it just went down to capitalism for him. He was like, if they're going to pay me, I'm going to go here. If they're going to pay me, I'm going to go here. Even though, according to the article, he didn't charge, those who wanted their freedom. I mean, but he still made money off of enslavement, right? So very hypocritical, unfortunately. And that's how some of the United States is, in our judiciary system, in our Congress, the whole nine, say one thing, do another. But yeah, let's I don't know how many of y'all know about the Emancipation proclamations here in the United States, but we're definitely going to go over those in the next section with the great Dr. Claude Anderson. Once again, the topic is Fourth History in Black America. So let's read from Dr. Anderson's book, Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, by the great Dr. Claude Anderson. So God give flowers in respect to Dr. Claude Anderson. Question 35. Were Blacks legally or symbolically emancipated from institutionalized enslavement? Considering the fact that in the 21st century, Blacks are still treated as a socioeconomic underclass and political outgroup, the real legal status of Blacks in America is unclear. History reveals that since the founding of this country, there were numerous emancipation proclamations that proposed to end slavery and set Blacks free. However, none in fact did. The nation's first Emancipation Proclamation was proposed by Lord Dunmore, the British Royal Governor of Virginia, in November 1775. On the eve of the American Revolutionary War, Lord Dunmore offered freedom to any slave who would take up arms against the colonies and fight with the British troops. 3 months later, fearful of the harm armed and angry slaves would bring to European white colonists, Lord Dunmore reconsidered and withdrew his Emancipation Proclamation to free blacks. Nearly a century later, in 1852, a second Emancipation Proclamation was drafted in response to Nat Turner's slave revolt. Turner's revolt shook the nation, especially the southern slaveholding states. Frightened by the successful slave revolt in Haiti and Nat Turner's revolt in Virginia, many southern slaveholders indicated a willingness to end black enslavement and resettle black slaves into Africa, Texas, or the Caribbean islands. Shortly thereafter, the mere thought of over 4 million angry, armed blacks in the street quickly galvanized Virginia legislators to offer what constituted a third Emancipation Proclamation that proposed simply to abolish slavery. Ironically, nearly half of Virginia's legislators voted to abolish slavery in Virginia, the birthplace of Black American slavery. They came just a few votes short of ending slavery and preventing the Civil War that followed. You want to take the next two?
A few years later, on January 1st, 1863, after the Civil War had begun, President Abraham Lincoln reluctantly offered the well-known Fourth Emancipation Proclamation that did not free a single black slave. Even though it was symbolic, it gave blacks some sense of hope, which they recall annually on Juneteenth Day. Contrary to what so many blacks believe, Abraham Lincoln signed the well-known Emancipation Proclamation in an effort to save the Union, not out of love and compassion for black slaves. Lincoln's proclamation was a propaganda ploy to lift the spirits of the tired Union troops as well as expectant blacks. The proclamation announced that all persons held as slaves within any state in the rebellion against the United States were henceforth and forever free. President Lincoln had no control over the rebelling Southern states and no constitutional authority to abolish slavery in loyal states. Consequently, black slaves actually had to wait until the end of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution before they gained some quasi-freedom. A fifth Emancipation Proclamation was proposed by the Southern Confederacy in the closing months of the Civil War. Some of its most prominent leaders wanted to use their Emancipation Proclamation to recruit black slaves to fight the Civil War on behalf of the South. General Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis, the president of the Southern Confederacy, announced in their Emancipation Proclamation willingness to free the slaves in exchange for official recognition from the North that the South was an independent and sovereign territory. The North refused. Even so, the Southern Confederacy finally decided to set blacks free. But by then, it was too late. The war was over, and the Southern Confederacy had lost. 5 different Emancipation Proclamations were proposed, but none of them actually ended slavery. Each of the above 5 proclamations was issued for a specific purpose of the issuer, but none ever went into effect nor ended slavery. The proclamations excited blacks, but did not free them. This is the reason the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was necessary. Even then, the freedom offered was tenuous, qualified, and led to Jim Crow semi-slavery.
Yep. Once again, we just keep bringing this evidence, why reparation is due, to the descendants here in America. And it's a travesty because we are American people, American citizens, and every time even the government has tried to resolve this issue, it's fallen on deaf ears and, more importantly, on the floor. So let's actually go into the 13th Amendment by an article written at history.com. And once again, family, if you guys have any comments, go throw it in the chat. Any other ideas about July 4th, you want to put in the comments, go ahead and do so. Appreciate y'all being here, taking your time out to learn, or maybe to relearn.
Yeah, and if you barbecue, we want to know what you picking up, and the address if you close in Sacramento here. Let us know. Ain't nobody judging you.
Yeah, wouldn't put your address out there online, but
No,
yeah,
DM me, fam.
Yeah, definitely DM the ETN Media Group at gmail.com, ETN Media Group at gmail.com. All right. Does an exception clause in the 13th Amendment still permit slavery? The amendment, which officially abolished slavery in the United States in 1865, includes a loophole regarding involuntary servitude. The year the Civil War ended, the U.S. amended the Constitution to prohibit slavery and involuntary servitude, but it purposefully left in one big loophole for people convicted of crimes. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Scholars, activists, and prisoners have linked that exception clause to the rise of a prison system that incarcerates Black people at more than 5 times the rate. Let me repeat that once again. Black people at more than 5 times the rate of white people and profits off of their unpaid or underpaid labor. What we see after the passage of the 13th Amendment is a couple of different things converging, says Andrea Armstrong, a law professor at Loyola University in New Orleans. First, the 13th Amendment text allows for involuntary servitude where convicted of a crime. At the same time, quote, Black codes, end quote, in the South created new types of offenses, especially attitudinal offenses, not showing proper respect, those types of things. You want to take the next one?
After the Civil War, new offenses like malicious mischief were vague and could be a felony or misdemeanor depending on the supposed severity of behavior. These laws sent more Black people to prison than ever before, and by the late 19th century, the country experienced its first prison boom. Legal scholar Michelle Alexander writes in her book, The New Jim Crow, after a brief period of progress during Reconstruction, African Americans found themselves once again virtually defenseless, Alexander writes. The criminal justice system was strategically employed to force African Americans back into a system of extreme repression and control, a tactic that would continue to prove successful for generations to come. States put prisoners to work through a practice called convict leasing, whereby white planters and industrialists led prisoners to work for them. States and private businesses made money doing this, but prisoners didn't. This meant many Black prisoners found themselves living and working on plantations against their will and for no pay decades after the Civil War.
States also benefited and profited off of prison labor by forcing chain gangs to build roads and creating prison farms to grow crops like sugar and snap peas. Today, states and private companies still rely on prisoners performing free or extremely low paid labor for them. For example, California saves up to $100 million a year, according to state corrections spokesman Bill Sessa, by recruiting incarcerated people as volunteer firefighters. Let me repeat that once again. For example, California saves up to $100 million a year, according to state corrections spokesman Bill Sessa. States would not be able to incarcerate as many people as they do without this, in effect, subsidy of the cost. Armstrong says, so it masks the true nature or the true cost of incarceration. Decades of prison and civil rights activism have sought to improve conditions and pay for incarcerated workers. In 1971, inmates at New York's Attica Correctional Facility took control of the prison and issued a list of demands, including the right to join labor unions and earn a minimum wage. More recently, in the summer of 2018, prisoner laborers across the United States went on strike to protest what they called, quote, modern-day slavery, end quote. In 2020, congressional Democrats introduced a joint resolution to remove the punishment clause from the 13th Amendment. The resolution would need to be passed by a 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress. Then 3/4 of states would need to approve the change for it to become federal law. Wow. Very interesting. Any comments on that? Anybody in the chat? Kim, you got any comments before we move forward?
I mean, so what happened in 2020?
Well, the law's still on the books.
So
I don't know
wait,
what to say.
in
I mean, that
2020,
clause is still
congressional
there.
Democrats introduced a joint resolution to remove the punishment clause from the 13th Amendment. The resolution would need to be passed by 2/3. So it never made it to the floor?
I don't know. Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? Do you guys know? I mean, I'm not too aware if it did or not. So if anybody knows, but we'll definitely follow up on that.
Okay, yeah, let's follow up on that.
But
and
I
see what
know
ever
it's
happened
still
to
in
it.
the Constitution. So no matter what, if it made it through the floor or not, it's still not out of the Constitution. So as far as I'm concerned, whether the resolution passed, until it's actually removed, it is what it is.
What an insidious system.
All right. So after this is in regards to I believe this is the last state that finally ratified slavery, or the wording in the Constitution via state. So after failing in 1865 to ratify the 13th Amendment, Mississippi finally ratifies it 130 years after its adoption. After failing for 130 years to ratify the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery except as punishment for crime, the state of Mississippi finally ratified the 13th Amendment on March 16, 1995. Soon after the Confederacy's defeat in the Civil War, the 13th Amendment was designed to abolish slavery nationwide. The text of the amendment reads, quote, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction."
After Congress passed the amendment on January 31st, 1865, 3/4 of the state, 27 of 36, needed to ratify it before it could become part of the Constitution. Mississippi's economy was built on slavery, and the state had the largest enslaved population in the country at the start of the Civil War. On December 5th, 1865, the state legislature voted against ratification, becoming one of several Southern states that refused to endorse the 13th Amendment. Ultimately, the amendment received enough votes from other states so that it was ratified the following day, despite Mississippi's opposition to the end of enslavement.
Almost 130 years later, in 1994, a clerk in the Texas legislature named Gregory Watson discovered that Mississippi still had not ratified the 13th Amendment. He notified each of the Black members of the Mississippi legislature and sent them a draft of a resolution that Mississippi could adopt in order to rectify the situation. On March 16th of the next year, the Mississippi legislature reached a largely symbolic vote to unanimously ratify the abolition of slavery in the United States, becoming the last of the eligible states to do so.
After the vote, however, Mississippi state officials failed to send the necessary documents to the Federal Register, so the ratification was not formally filed as required. Nearly 20 years later, in late 2012, 2 Mississippi residents discovered that the ratification was not yet official and notified the Secretary of State. Several weeks later, the required paperwork was filed, and Mississippi's ratification of the 13th Amendment was legally recorded on February 7, 2013.
Wow.
So should that be the day that we celebrate Independence Day?
What, 2013, right?
February 7, 2013. Okay, so we got an Independence Day celebration coming up in February, fam.
Another thing to add on to the calendar, right?
Yeah.
So we got December, what was that, 18th? December, what was that? In
December 18th is
Oh,
when
18th?
they
Okay.
ratified the 13th Amendment. So that's another celebration. Then we've got this with Mississippi going on. We've got Juneteenth. I mean, and we still
Man,
ain't free.
these people all over the place with with these dates, man. We celebrating the 4th when it should be celebrated on February 7th, right? Anyway.
February 7th, according to this article, yes. But I'm sure it was just one big oversight
Yeah.
on Mississippi's behalf, right?
Speaking of oversight and family, we have about, I don't know, about another 10 minutes, hopefully, and then we'll let you guys get back to your daily routine. Appreciate you. But speaking of oversight, so Emmett Till's accuser, I don't even remember the white woman's name, but looks like there's some updates about Emmett Till's case and that oversight about finding the warrant about whatever that white woman's name who accused the great ancestor Emmett Till. So I didn't know, Kim, if you wanted to touch on that just about a minute or so, or I know we're going to be doing in the news again, and we'll be touching on that. But you know the latest on that.
So that was just, I haven't read up on the full story. I have been seeing some headlines about it. So what, another oversight? They didn't serve the warrant because it got buried under some paperwork or something. I don't know, but she's still alive. If there are no statutes of limitations on her lies, then she should be brought to justice. Is how I feel about it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's look at the states that currently, or actually, let's start on the federal level with the language except as a punishment for crime. It's currently in the Constitution. On the federal level, it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Let's see, states with the exception clause in it for punishment. We have Alabama. I'm not actually going to read, what they have in their constitution, but I'll just name the states currently. Alabama, Arkansas, California, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Vermont, and Wisconsin. That's interesting about Vermont. Vermont has a long clause in there. That's interesting. But yeah, if anybody wants more information on that, just do your search on Wikipedia. And these are currently the states without the exceptions. I think it was mentioned in an article that we read, but we'll go ahead and reiterate those states: Colorado, Nebraska, and Utah. Now, here are the state constitutions with no mentions of slavery or involuntary servitude: Alaska, Arizona, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, which I'm actually shocked, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, shocked about Texas too, but Texas, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, and Wyoming. All right, so here's a little history about some of these states with no mentions of slavery or involuntary servitude. Colorado became the first state to repeal the exception clause from their state's constitution in 2018. Current bills to repeal similar clauses have passed in Utah and Nebraska after voters approved them in referendum in 2020. Following voters approving a 2020 ballot measure allowing Alabama legislature to recompile the state constitution, the legislature finalized a repeal of similar panel exception language from the state constitution as part of a bid to remove racist language from the state constitution, which will go to referendum in November 2022. The legislatures of Vermont and Oregon sent similar amendments to voters for a vote in 2022. Tennessee's legislature approved similar language for a 2022 ballot after 2 consecutive sessions, but like Utah's 2020 revision, will include a subsection clarifying that the prohibition will not prohibit an inmate from working when the inmate was duly convicted of a crime. In 2021, Congresswoman Nikema Williams and Senator Jeff Merkley introduced legislation in the 117th Congress to repeal the exception clause from the U.S. Constitution. A resolution to bring a repeal to the California State Constitution in 2022 was passed unanimously in the California State Assembly. So, as Dr. Claude Anderson was saying, I mean, we have all these like so-called resolutions, proclamations, but at the end of the day, what are any of these like legislations doing really to help the Black community? That's a question that I have, for people in the comments, for those who are going to be watching it. Like, what are these laws doing to protect the Black community?
Laws or resolutions and proclamations?
Well, I guess technically both, but in this particular case, proclamations and resolutions. Like,
I mean, they're symbolic. They're not doing anything, but it does give you, I guess, a reference point to go back to say, hey, look, they resoluted and acknowledged this, but nothing's still being done. So now we need, hard action. No more lip service. So that's what it is for me. You could just look back and see that they've not done anything that they said that they were going to do, which is usually what happens.
Yeah. And then real quick before we get out of here, I want to give some acknowledgement to our brother Samuel Brown. For those who don't know of him, we'll read his quick bio. Samuel Brown is an artist, an educator, a philosopher, a spoken word poet, and an organizer. He paroled from Lancaster in December of 2021 after serving 24 years in California state prisons. He did a great deal of maturing spiritually and physically in those 24 years. And through his own healing and transformation, he's been able to create pathways for others to realize their potential through social emotional learning. He is the original author of ACA 3, a bill drafted while incarcerated, which will amend the California Constitution to end involuntary servitude, modern-day slavery in California state prisons. Well, as this time this Bible was written, that was the goal, obviously. That did not happen, but I'm sure Samuel Brown and the group called ASAP that he's working with, I should say. And I believe, I could be wrong, don't quote me, I believe he created that organization as well, but don't quote me on that. Are fighting, the good fight to end slavery here in California. So shout out to that brother. So all right, family, that's pretty much about it right now. If there's anything y'all want to say before we go out, hit us in the comments or hit us at etnmediagroup@gmail.com. That's about it. Anything that you want to say? before we
I
get out of here?
mean, I know we've been throwing the word hypocrisy around a lot this show, but I mean, it just really, they don't want to take slavery and voluntary servitude out of the 13th Amendment Constitution as it relates to prison labor. But at the same time, over here in Texas, as it relates to school book curriculum, they want to change the word slavery to involuntary relocation. So my question is, why do we want to change slavery in one instance, but in another instance, they just can't seem to let it go? I mean, and how would you even do that? I mean, you change slavery in one place, but it's still there in the 13th Amendment, but you change it in the school book curriculum. That doesn't even make sense to me.
Great question.
And then they want to keep slavery on the books as far as it relates to prison. They, of course, they want to erase it from the actual history that they need to atone for, but they want to keep the word slavery. But even with the situation that we're dealing with out here in the Sacramento surrounding area of Folsom, they want to change the name of Negro Bar, which is a recreational area, another state park that was probably taken by eminent domain. I don't know. We need to do the history on that still, but they want to change, and they've already done it. They've changed Negro Bar. It's been Negro Bar for the longest. They changed it to Black Minor Bar. So you want to take Negro and erase that from legal lexicon, from the state historic parks. What's next? From our birth certificates? Because I know a lot of us have Negro as a reference on our birth certificates. So I just don't understand, why such vim and vigor for changing or erasing the word Negro, but wanting to maintain the system of slavery. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, you bring up some valid points and some valid questions that we, as American public, as American society, need to contemplate on, right? Because you're talking about at one moment, how do you keep from not erasing or having erasure, for Black American history, yet make progress at the same time, right? Because let's face it, a lot of people just don't like the word Negro, which is understandable. However, how do you preserve that, to make sure that, especially when it comes to reparations, right? Because we need to make sure that whatever documentation, whatever areas that we lived in, where we migrated to, and on the census records or on maps, even when you talk about erasure, when it comes to some of these maps that we found out as we're, doing the documentary. I mean, some of these streets in Allensworth in particular, and also in Weed, we found out that they were actually named something different than what they're named now. As a matter of fact, when some of the Black folk went out to Weed, they brought the places where they came from, like Texas and Louisiana and so forth, which would be great if they preserve those streets in Weed, because that would show, okay, these were where Black people were at. But they even changed those street names. But we're going to go, see, fam, we're going to go deep in this reparations documentary. It's not just going to be like, okay, this is just some stuff we're putting together. Family, we are traveling to these places, right? We're trying to put in some great work for the family, because this has to be told. We have to tell it from our perspective, and any support that you guys can give to us, even just spreading the word about it is cool. I mean, if you can't give to the GoFundMe account, no worries, but even talking about reparations will help tremendously. And hopefully, if we get on the road, come out, support us, show up. We want to hear your voice, because this isn't just, about just a documentary. This is really a community involvement project, like for real. So I think that's about it for right now. Anything else? Can you want to drop? We about 3 minutes out. It's 12:27.
No, I think we'll
Pacific
let everybody
Standard.
get back to their 4th of July celebrations, whatever those may be. I am going to drop the GoFundMe link one more time, because if you are able to contribute, you will get a credit in the in credit. So, you will become a part of this Reparations Now documentary history.
Definitely. And also, I just want to let's for those speakers who came to the reparations rally on June 12th, I just want to give a shout out and mention to some of those folks that came through. All right, real quick, it looks like Darlene said, Yamoya, can you give us a few reasons why some don't like the word Negro? I mean, because they felt, just from my perspective, and I could be totally wrong, and other people in the comments, at one point in time, Negro, they felt like it was like, attached to the N word, Nigger, even though they're two different, actually, words. There's that, reason. Some other people like the word black better because it seemed like to identify black people better than Negro. Negro actually comes from the Spanish word meaning black. So I don't know. Other people, obviously, later on with Jesse Jackson and calling Black Americans African American, which I know Kim has her perspective on. If you want to say the perspective on African American, actually, I don't even know. Like, we still got to do some research. I think we actually talked about it on this platform briefly. But from my understanding, like Jesse Jackson really pushed the whole African American, and we also know that in terms of reparations has an issue using African American because it doesn't delineate between lineage, which everybody on this platform already knows about that. So hopefully that answers your question, Darlene. I know you probably have an opinion as well. But
No, it doesn't really answer the question, but we are trying to get to the bottom of this erasure issue as it relates to Folsom Lake, or not Folsom
Wait, hold
Lake.
on a second, Kim. So you're saying that my question didn't answer the question from Darlene?
It's clear as mud. It's clear as mud.
Oh
But,
yeah. No, yeah. I just wanted to clarify that I don't. That's from my perspective.
Well, that's what I was saying is
saying?
I know I want to further research the decision that was made at the Negro Bar out here in Folsom on who was offended, because that's what they're saying. Oh, people were so offended. That's why we had to change the name. I want to find out who was offended, because when we went to go visit the area, as you know, the only people that were out there at this recreation center were a bunch of white people. So is this who's offended? Is that who's complaining? Yeah. So I just want to
Good
know who's
question. I don't know.
offended. Who's so offended?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be a good survey to do, right? To ask Black people, like, who or what would you want to be called? Would you even want to
Right.
go
And
back
as far
to be
as
called Negro?
preservation, I'm not necessarily saying that they have to go back to calling us Negro and that has to become, what we see on our government forms. But as far as preserving the areas that have that name, because that is it's an identifier of our people, Black miners. 50 years from now, ain't nobody gonna know what that means. Who was the miners? Who did what? So it's a form of erasure, definitely.
Yeah, and we're gonna go into the root actually about. And forgot to mention, we actually are going to do a piece on the Negro Bar, right? And so we're going to go actually into the history of the Negro Bar. So yeah, it's we're trying to put all these, at least as far as California is concerned, because that's where we're going to start.
Yeah.
you know.
Now, a little more
together.
history on the Negro Bar, because we are just, doing our discovery now. But at one point, way back in the early history of the Black gold miners,
You're gonna drop it now.
you don't want me?
I-
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
let's
All right.
not
All
drop
right.
it
All
now. They're
right.
gonna watch the documentary. Like, we
Okay.
gotta
Well,
get people to watch the
Darlene is
documentary.
not offended by the word.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you.
Darlene. Nor
Appreciate
am
that.
I. I embrace it as a matter of fact.
Negro.
On my
Okay.
birth certificate.
Yeah, and just this is off topic, but like, the word we actually have an ancient word that comes from Ethiopia called negus, which means basically royalty, right? That's pretty close to the N word. So, we go way back. We go way back. But I want to get back onto to topic here. And want to thank some of the speakers who came out for the reparations rally on June 12th. Shout out to Chris Larson, Kelly Rivas, Michael Harris, who did give a little history on the Negro Bar. I don't think Sam came out, right?
Sam was there. You need to pull up your picture. Sam was there.
Okay, shout out to him. But he didn't speak. Was he there?
I don't know that did he speak? I don't know. You guys are gonna have to go roll back the tape. It is
Okay,
on
yeah, I didn't think
media.
he spoke. Dr. Christy Higgins, she's actually in the photograph too. Sean unfortunately couldn't come. Shout out to Information Man. If you have a chance to go check him out, definitely check him out. Samuel Brown came through, talked about ACA 3. Gary Simon.
Oh, that's who I meant spoke. Sam Brown.
Oh,
Sam
okay,
Brown was
like,
there. Sam Starks,
yeah.
Nah, he was a no-show.
Gotcha. Okay, because I was a little confused, Kim. I was just like, I didn't think I saw Sam there, but yeah, Samuel and Brown. Shout out to Gary Simon in Sacramento. He holds the Juneteenth festivities here. He's been doing that for a while. And shout out to the chair,
over 20 years.
20 years holding it down. Shout out to Camilla Moore, the chair for the California Reparations Task Force. She came through virtually. Much love and respect to her. That's about it. And I don't know if y'all have taken the survey, if you guys see that little QR code. I don't know if it's still up or not for the reparations survey, but if you haven't taken it, you can still go ahead and take it. Give them your opinion. Or the UCLA Bunch Center is actually the ones who's hosting the survey. So you can go ahead and take that survey. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, queens and queens, kings and queens, and everybody out there, thank you for your time. Once again, we're going to be working on this reparations documentary. I would appreciate any support that you do have. And I guess, on that, this is it, Rada Papa Radatus Anuncis. You got anything, Kim, before we get out of here?
Nah, just peace, love, and reparations. We'll be, where to find us. You know what we'll be doing, tracking this reparations movement out here in California. So actually we are in the proposal stage of getting the proposals together to the reparations task force. The task force does want to hear from the community members just like you. So if there's something that's impacting your life that you think could be included in a comprehensive reparations package, just reach out to the task force, let them know what they're thinking. They are considering all proposals at this time. I know I'm working on mine.
Yep, for sure. All right, family, you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.